Welcome, everyone. I have here in our Conversation with Leaders series Anupama Chopra, a name which is not unknown at all. More than 25 years in the cinema industry, an author, journalist, film critic, director of the Mumbai Film Festival, and also the founder of the digital platform Film Companion. And I think that's what majorly, all of us got introduced to you, Anupama. The kind of work that you do there, the how you decode the whole film industry and movies and bring the best of the reviews to us. Thank you so much for taking out your time today and talking to us about this industry.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So my first question to you, Anupama, is that 25 years, right? Or maybe more or less, somewhere there. From movies like Earth, Aakhir Kyun, Goody, and I think to even go back as, Saraswati Chandra, I just watched it 15 days back, 2 weeks ago, and I was completely wowed by how some of the scenes and characters and even the last scene when the actress decides that she will continue her life alone on her own, which was in 1968. If we look at it today, in today's time, how much has cinema actually progressed, or are we stuck in time, or have we moved any bit forward?
You know, um, that's a tough one. I wouldn't want to generalize and say that it hasn't progressed. Then it's a sort of cyclical thing. We did have the time you talk about the 50s and the 60s. There were very very powerful roles for women, and you had great actors like Nutan, who essayed that role. Bandhani, just incredible actors, amazingly fleshed out female characters, directors who were interested in finding out what the inner life of a woman is, which kind of got phased out in the 70s thanks to the super stardom of the angry young persona of Mr. Bachchan. Great actor, one of my favorites. But what essentially that did was sort of slowly edge out the leading lady, the comedian, because he could do everything, and he was so successful that I think producers had to say, और किसी की जरूरत ही क्या है, uh,
Okay.
वो तो है ही, so through the 70s and 80s, women, it was hard, but Chandni, which had Sridevi in all her glory, was the late 80s. It was 89, and then in the 90s you have the sort of real superstardom of Madhuri Dixit. I mean, you know of course, at that time they saw this as a massive compliment, but these women were called the female Amitabh Bachchan. That was the ultimate compliment the film industry could pay to women who could pull in a crowd on their own. So it's been, it's peaks and troughs, it's ebbs, highs and lows. And then, then you have the dirty picture in 2011. And after that, Vidya Balan kicks off a
Right.
whole new spate of female-led films. So it's too hard to say, oh, we haven't, and we're standing in the same place. No, we're not. I mean, technically, the film industry has moved massively in terms of female participation. The film industry it's a brave new world. I mean, if I tell you what it was like when I started, I mean, you can't even imagine how male it was. And so we have progress. There's been lots of progress, but I think
How male it was, Anupama. Sorry to interrupt, but I really want to understand, right? Because as an outsider, the only introduction to this workplace, to this industry, is the output that we see.
yeah.
And what goes behind the scenes. And I'm not even going into the whole movie making process, right? The industry is so much more than making movies. Um, how exactly it was? Let's just look at it
You
from a
know,
workplace perspective.
it was, and it continues to be male dominated. And it's not just for the Hindi film industry. Film industries across the globe are uh, are not even at 50-50 gender parity. So let's not kid ourselves and say the West is very much ahead. They're not. you know. What was it like when I started? So I did, I think it was 1995. I was working for India Today magazine. We did a cover story on Madhuri Dixit. I think it was titled "The Duck Duck Girl," and she was on the cover in that purple sari from Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, that iconic purple sari.
Right.
And I remember going to a set to interview her, and literally the only women on that set were me and her mom and her hairdresser. There
Wow,
were
that hits
four.
hard.
Yeah, yeah. There were four women in a crew of 120, 150. I don't know how big that crew was, but these were massive productions, with very, very few women. And that's how, you had women doing very specific jobs. So, yes, hair was women, but makeup was men. It was always a makeup dada.
Hmm.
The monopoly was men. Of course, the leading ladies were women, the dancers were women, and that was it. I mean, you never saw an AD who was a woman. I mean, the first time I remember noticing that, holy shit, there's women on this set as assistant directors was Mansoor Khan's Josh, which was probably
Wow.
98, 99. you know. So that's how recent the changes are.
But no, thanks for sharing that, Anupama, because like I said, it's a very invisible world to all of us. Um, but if we look at once again, that's how I got introduced to cinema. I think I never looked at cinema as just uh, one way to describe it. I always look at three E's. It's yes, it's going to entertainment, but it should also engage me and it should also educate me, right? If these three things are there for me, this is like I'm a fan. um, that's true cinema for me and a lot of people. Right now, I don't really know what's the real definition of cinema that we talk of, so I will obviously, request you to clarify that part. And the second part of the question is, has cinema actually played its role as an influencer to the society, or is it getting influenced from the society? I know you said it's a cyclical thing, but where exactly the buck stops? Who is getting inspired or influenced by who?
Look, it's first of all, when we speak of the film industry, it's not like the film industry is made up of aliens who've arrived here from Mars. These are all people who are products of the society we live in. So, to expect um, an amazingly emancipated film
Hmm.
industry where things are equal, and men are making amazing progressive movies about women, or enabling those films to happen, or green lighting them and giving them massive budgets. Is that the society we live in? No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
Look at what this country um, has uh, dealt with in terms of the way it's dealt with women. Look at the kind of violence we see against women on a daily basis. So why are we expecting the film industry to be somehow this really intellectual progressive place? It's not. It's
Yeah.
not. It can only, because we're all products of the society, and we're all learning. We're all works in progress. There are movies that, and many actors and directors have commented on this. Amir Khan has said that he did a song, I think it was in a film called Dil, called Khambe Jaisi Khadi Hai, where he's really aggressively sort of going after
Portraying, yes.
Madhuri Dixit's character. And he said, I would never do it now. But in that time, in the 90s, none of this felt uh, sort of
Unreal or out
offensive.
of the world,
Yeah,
abnormal,
no, it didn't feel,
objectionable.
wrong. It
Yeah.
didn't feel wrong. So everybody here is learning as we as a country evolve, as we learn to treat our women differently, as we learn to ask the right questions. I mean, and that includes me. I mean, there are films in which I didn't see stalking. I thought, wow, what a great love story, and I really bought into it. I bought into it, and I cried, and I was moved. And then I read somebody else's saying that, my God, this is stalking. And I was like, yaar, mujhe to dikhi bhi nahi. So you have your own blind spots, and you have to constantly educate yourself and learn. So, um, and I think you have, of course, cinema is a massive influencer, especially in this country. Um, we worship the movies, we worship our film artists. They have a huge social responsibility. But if they say we are here to entertain, we are here to do a great piece of acting, um, it's not my job to send out great messages. That's not what I signed up for. That's their prerogative. We cannot place. I would love for artists to have a sense of social responsibility,
Mm.
but I will not insist on it. I will not say that you are a poor artist if you are there to just create great art, because that's your choice. you
No,
know
that's very true, actually. I think we expect too much from people, and once again, the world is divided on it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so is the film industry. I mean, I did a conversation with about 8 actors in at the end of last year, and we had everybody from Ranveer and Deepika, Alia, Ayushman, and Vijay Devarkonda and Vijay
Yeah.
Sethupathi and Manoj Bajpayee, and it was a divided room. Many people, I think, off the top of my head, I remember Deepika saying that yes, it's very important, you have to have a sense of social responsibility, and the others were not so sure. They were like, look, we are telling a story, and you, as a thinking adult, take from it what you want. Especially, the whole conversation around Arjun Reddy and then later Kabir Singh. uh, Vijay was like, but this is a story I'm telling, this is a very flawed character. So it is extremely debatable, and honestly I'm very conflicted about it, because I feel like it's not also right to say, but you must entertain us, but also instruct us on how to be better people.
But that
The best
nobody can do.
that
I think.
look, the best movies do that. The best movies teach us how to be better people. That's why I love the movies. A great film will open your mind, it will allow you to see something that you didn't see before. But to insist on it, I think, is to be a little naive.
So I think my lens is correct. I think I will still continue looking for these three things. Uh,
Yes, yes,
Sadly, because of I think I'm always wearing or looking at the world from gender lens. So it's become very
sure.
difficult to enjoy movies without
Yes.
using lens.
So exactly, so that's the so I'm not of a generation which looked at everything through a gender lens, but I work with Suchata Tyagi, who works with me on Film Companion, does look at films through a gender lens. And I think it's a generational difference. She's far more aware than me. She's far more offended
Yeah.
than I get. I'm willing to make, because I've just seen, like, for me, maybe I made my peace with it because I thought कि यार अगर सब चीज ऐसे देखोगे, you'll enjoy nothing.
That's what happens eventually. One thing, something will not be there. Something will not be there, and that's what happens because I remember seeing some movies where they now we have started showing gay characters and queer characters and lesbian characters on cinema, and the question that I end up asking myself is that why are there not gay and queer artists out there? Why is the queer community not just in terms of role representation, but people, actors, mainstream? And that once again, so there will always be something that will be missing. But that's a question that I want to understand from you. Um, what is missing? Not that there's one single reason for the community representation, not on the movies and not in the roles, but for them to play the real roles, for them to be actually act it out as actors. Where exactly is the gap? Because when we see it, this is a very inclusive industry, especially because of the kind of diversity that it has for so many years. I mean, the collective intelligence of the industry is of a very different level.
Mm. So you're saying, is the question, why aren't gay actors playing gay roles?
Or why aren't there any gay actors or queer actors?
Maybe they don't feel comfortable coming out. you know Maybe that's the truth of it. It's a tough business.
Hmm.
And of course, we within the industry, we know, and they're not hiding it either. But to go out there and to say, to kind of come out, so to speak, to the larger public is very, very tough, and you have to be respectful of that decision. Who can, um, look, this is not a country um, that is first of all, it's a country living in many, many different centuries, so you'll have pockets that are extremely evolved and sophisticated and inclusive and accepting, and you will have as many pockets that are like, my god, kill this one, boycott this one, hate that one, and you can see it. This is playing out around us as we speak.
Hmm.
So in that environment, you're an actor. um, I don't know. Maybe you just don't feel confident enough, and you think that it might make you lose work. It might, anything is possible. Honestly, I wouldn't want to put myself in those shoes, but one can only sort of respectfully kind of say that's their decision, and hope that someday we are at a place as a ecosystem, as a society, and as a country where people can speak their truth.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, at least as a workplace, that's the expectation. And somewhere, I think the laws that are being introduced, getting very technical here, but even though not considered officially given the title of industry, it isn't. All the laws are still applicable to cinema also, be it Maternity Benefits Act or Sexual Harassment Prevention Act, Transgender Persons Protection Act. Yes, the law is flawed and there are rules that still needs to be formed and they will get revised. People with Disability Act, all these laws are applicable to this industry also. um, how do you see at the back end it panning out from the industry perspective? Do you
Look,
see there's enough awareness in terms of people actually getting to know? Because this industry is so busy with so much happening internally. As and when these laws happen, does the industry actively talk about it? Are these conversations becoming part of the mainstream internal conversations?
largely no. I think, of course, sexual harassment became a talking point because it hit everybody very hard. But
Mhm.
until that point, were we all aware of the legalities and what every single production house needed to have, the systems you needed to have? I don't think so. I just don't think there was enough awareness of what, and I'm sure many production houses had the committees, the ICCs in place. Some didn't. But, that I know for sure became a talking point, that we all need to do better, and the Producers Guild, which is the broader, bigger organization, sort of passed its own rules about every production house that's a member needs to have this in place. And then since then, things have fallen into place. Is everybody aware of, policies regarding transgender disabilities? Um, I am not so sure.
Any suggestion, Anupama? I mean, how do you see it becoming? Because we can't, like
Look,
I was saying a while ago also.
it's a far more organized place again than when I started. When I started, it was really the wild, wild west. There were very few production houses, which were, very that had very solid reputations, that were respected. Yash Chopra's, YRF Films, Subhash Ghai. You had these few really big daddies, and then you had several fly by night operators. Nobody knew kahan se aaye the, kaun the ye log, kiska paisa tha. Then you had that whole sort of experience with underworld money in the 90s. uh, it has become far more um, organized. It's become far more sort of it's become far more of an industry than it ever has been. But it still is, uh, a gig economy. It still is I mean, what is a, so one of the challenges when they started to make policies was, um, what is the policy on a shoot?
Right.
um, a
These are
shoot is not an
temporary
office.
workplaces. It's
Yeah. Well, a shoot is not an office. um, you know how are you going to deal with the romance that happens on an outdoor shoot? Do you actively go in there and say this is not allowed? Or does it matter whether the male is in a higher position in the hierarchy in the food chain?
hmm.
Is it consent? Is it coercion? I mean, these are These are very, very delicate, very sensitive, and of course there needs to be um, a system. Of course there needs to be a system. This is an this whole ecosystem is built on um, too many people chasing the same very few things, and
Mm,
therefore it is primed for exploitation.
that's true.
Primed, and I don't mean that just for women, it's for men, it's across the board. It is, everybody's chasing that same dream of stardom and money and fame and success, and there are people in positions of power who will be the gatekeepers to this fantasy life of just all of this. So it's a very tough business, and but I think what makes me hopeful is that systems have come into place. Conversations, I know. Also, there are so many more women in the business now. I
Mm,
mean, I don't know any unit where there's not like dozens of women working there,
right.
including the really male oriented, male dominated spaces like cinematography, like music composers. I mean, you had like a handful of women composers, and you still do, but at least
They're
they're
growing.
they're all there. Female directors, female executives, makeup and hair. It's like at every stage you will meet women, and that changes. The composition of the film set has changed, and that changes the texture of interaction, that changes the texture of awareness. And I think even even if it's not great enlightened thinking, everyone's shit scared now, right? So we're good.
That's a good thing from where I.
It's a great thing. It's a great thing. I'm saying, chalo yaar, is lifetime mein enlightenment nahi milega tum logo ko, But out of fear, out of fear, you're being mindful and you're keeping the lines intact and you're making sure that you are respectful of the women on your set. That's brilliant.
So, is would you suggest that there's the same approach that would be required, or the same evolutionary cycle required, let's say, for the larger gender representation, right? We started seeing more or better, or I don't even know, maybe more evolved female-led roles, right? Be it in the mainstream or even on platforms like Netflix, Hotstar, right? And the same approach will somewhere lead us when it comes to other members of the gender community, trans community, queer individuals, and other gender spectrums. The same journey of what, even 50 years.
Look,
Or is there a shortcut that we can take,
नहीं,
Anupama?
यार, I'm hopeful कि shortcut हो ही जाएगा, because look, the truth is that we had our first mainstream Bollywood film about a same-sex love story last year, right? एक लड़की को देखा was the first mainstream one in which you had a A-list mainstream star Sonam Kapoor playing a lesbian. Then this year you had Ayushmann Khurrana playing a gay man. So I'm saying that has happened quickly.
Actually,
It's
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that's surprising, right? Aligarh came before that, and was it too serious a movie, and that's why we're not
it
putting it
was a
in
stunning
mainstream.
film. It was a stunning film. I loved. I mean, Manoj
I
Bajpayee.
cried while watching that
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, me too. I was just sitting there and weeping copiously. It was the opening film of the Mumbai Film Festival, and I was just sitting there weeping. But no, it did not move the needle in the same way because it was not a full-blown mainstream film.
Okay.
I'm talking about a film that goes into, um, the smallest areas of this country. Because look, there's no point in preaching to the converted.
True.
Where you're trying to change the minds is those places to say that this is fine, love is love. You
Hmm.
know? So I'm hopeful that it's not going to take that long. And I think the film industry, every successive generation is smarter, is more willing to take risks. Is more. I mean, just I just look at all the changes I've seen in the last 2 decades, and I think the next 2 decades will bring even more. Hopefully.
I am looking forward to that actually,
Me
really
too.
looking forward. One of the observation that we had when we were looking at brands and how they actually create outputs in terms of advertisements, print or media. The same thing I want to relate it with the movies also. At the back end, when stories are being written, when characters are being written, how certain characters are shown, be it cis women or cis men or gay, trans people, and so on and so forth, different gender representation. At the somewhere there's a huge disconnect, right? And I agree, not all of us will be able to relate with all the characters, but sometimes the same macho image is being carried out, the same timid image is being carried out. Even if you want to show a strong woman, there's still a very different side of her which still remains to be the deeply rooted, cultured. Then if you want to show a queer person, the body language, clothes, everything is so very typical, which may not really be the real representation of what's happening out there, or how the community is, how different genders are. Does it help, or will it help, to have somebody who is writing these roles, and purely from the strategy side, to have members of the community actually, and I don't even know if they're consulted. So here's an insight that I want to understand, that are they actually consulted when these roles are being written or molded?
Honestly, I don't know. Um, I mean, again, look at something like Made in Heaven,
Mm-hmm.
which Zoya Akhtar, who I consider a very fine and a very, very sensitive director, created. So I think look, it's an individual expression, and it will always be dependent um, on what that filmmaker wants to do, and if how deep do they want to go. Like, my problem with Ayushman's film, what was it called? I'm completely blanking out. The one with Jitendra and Ayushman. Um,
Oh, the one that, okay, yes, I know which one
I'm
you're talking
totally blanking out right now.
about. But
Just
I know.
we
I
did,
know.
but
Yes.
I felt it was just too broad based, and it wasn't like, it didn't refine. But again, their whole argument was that we're trying to appeal to everyone. We're not speaking to you. You are an urban, an urban sort of evolved TG, and you are already accepting and inclusive. So we have no interest in trying to convert you. We're trying to speak to all the people who are out there. Um, and so, honestly, it depends on every filmmaker. It depends on what their aims are. It depends on what they're trying to do. Ek ladki ko dekha was written by Ghazal. So it just, look, this is each person is trying to do the best they can. There is no one here who's not actively striving to make the best film that they can. Because it's damn hard to make movies, it takes too much money. A lot of
Right.
them are just awful. That's a different thing. But that's not for lack of trying. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think that people, and yes, of course, it would help to have direct inputs from whatever community they're trying to represent. But I think that, like I said, as it goes along, it is going to evolve and it is getting better, because um, I see the way in the last 2 or 3 years, writers have been empowered. That's a
Hmm.
big thing. That's a very big thing. I mean, until 5, 7 years ago, it was like writers were the lowest in the food chain, and now you have people, sort of writers. Patalok is a massive success, and the showrunner on that was the writer. So this whole empowering of writers is also going to bring about massive change.
No, that's there. And I know we are almost out of time, but I have one last question for you,
Yes,
if we can actually go
sure.
ahead. Great. This sense of safety that we talk about, right? Be it a physical form of safety or safety from any form of harm, mental, physical, emotional, financial, has been a huge deterrent. And now I'm going back to women for many industries, right? That's why we don't see them, right? And going back to the journey of how it has been, and yes, we see a lot more actresses, but we had a lot more actresses earlier also.
Of course, of course.
So has the sense of safety evolved, not just with the presence or absence of laws, but just how the industry has functioned? Because every industry is evolving, it's learning from how it used to do certain things, and it has improved. Maybe there were no processes earlier, maybe there was no facility to send cars, and mobility was always an issue. Infrastructure was very different in
There
previous
were no
times.
bathrooms, yeah. Matlab, I've been on sets where, I was hanging around all day to do an interview, and you couldn't use the bathroom for like 7 hours because you literally, there were no loos that you could use. So I mean, from there we've come a long way.
How else has sense of safety evolved? And
So,
that's
I
my
think,
last question.
sure. I look. The thing is that I think just having more women on a set gives you a sense of safety. To be on those sets where I have been, which is why actresses would bring their mothers, because it was
Oh
a little,
yes, that's true. I always used to wonder that why my mother is always there.
because there were 200 men and you were one of 5 women. So what better than to bring mom along? That's just a signal to everybody that, like, keep your distance. um, and nobody does that, like, literally nobody does that anymore. Even the newbies, the youngest girls don't. That's done, that's over. um, I think we do have more rules in place. I think we do have I think women probably feel a sense of safety, but again, I feel like, I come from a place of privilege, uh, and and it's wrong for me to imagine that women feel a sense of safety, because when I walk on a set, I'm married to a producer, I'm a journalist, I do feel a sense of safety, but then I have to recognize that that doesn't mean that other women do. I I am just in a very, very privileged position. But I hope that because there are more women on a set now, women feel less isolated. They feel less intimidated. When I see, like, a DOP, like Priya Seth, a cinematographer who specializes in underwater cinematography, commanding a unit, it feels so good. It
It
feels
just
so
feels
good.
powerful watching somebody in
Absolutely.
that position.
Absolutely. So I can only, and again, like I said, that I'm not the best person. I think somebody who's actually working on sets would be able to give you a better idea of a sense of safety. But I hope there is more, and I think post Me Too, at least there is an awareness that you're not maybe going to get away with it. So I hope that has worked as a deterrent.
No, thank you. I hope so too. And I do look forward to the time without waiting for another Me Too movement for all
Correct.
these changes to happen, especially because this has been an industry where people usually look at,
Yeah.
even after so many years,
Yeah.
um, that it is not a safe industry. And I'm not even talking about how the dignity and other things, how the representation is, but from the safety perspective only.
Yeah.
And in times to come, we can only look forward to having more women leaders in the industry at
I hope that
different
will
levels.
change things. That will, for sure, and it's already changed things. When you have, like Ekta Kapoor, she's the head of her own studio. Um, that changes things. The textures, the emotions, everything changes. And you have EPs who are women. I mean, the streaming services are, there's women across the board there. And honestly, I have to leave you with one thought before I take off, is that I don't know, I was thinking, I mean, I love theaters, and I cannot wait to be back in a cinema hall again. But I wonder if the pandemic will actually help to little bit further the cause of women, because every female led film is not going to be measured by the box office. you know when it's not always about kitna paisa banaya, Friday ko kitna opening laga. Who knows, maybe we will have a better playing field. Maybe we'll get a little bit of a push. Who knows.
Nice. That's a nice maybe to end this conversation on, Anupama. Thank you so much. Not
Thank
just
you, and
taking
all
your time,
best.
but also allowing me to extend it.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
on your recommendation, I'm going to now look for somebody who is there at this shoots and
Please
then
do. Because
get
I
it.
would also love to hear that story. That what's it actually like to be in those conversations? Are men behaving differently? Are they addressing women differently? Are they keeping, some
The
sort of, yeah,
decorum and everything
that
has changed.
professional, yeah, I would love to know, because I personally uh, cannot tell you. They behave differently in front of me. I will never know.
That's true, actually. Thank you. Take
Thank
care,
you.
Anupama.
Bye.
Have a
Bye.
good evening.
Anupama, for
Bye.
your
Bye.
time.